A neglected warfare is now in the eyes of the planet. For all consumer expectations, a 1 week of negotiations, brokered by the UN at a card-perfect Swedish palace, took Yemen a move nearer to its settled world. Ours joint artistic achievements the 1 week were a considerable move. Striker, UN-specific messenger Martin Griffiths said the safety justice in New York the day following belligerent sides coordinated a ceasefire in the urgent Red Sea seaport of Hodeidah and its adjoining town. But Mr. Griffiths alerted how, which is in front line of us is a discouraging problem, to rotate the title of war to world. Yemen's title can so quickly rotate. During several hours of how uncommon break of expect came news story how occasional battles had break out on the east suburb of Hodeidah. The Stockholm transactions, that achieved agreements and understandings on a band of considerable issues, is brittle and pregnant in hazard. But it caused a uncommon ejection of ease amongst Yemenis who dared to expect versus expect the lowest was eventually above. Isn't the specific communication for world, a Yemen female militant exclaimed greedily in a communication located on public print. It as well comes at a period of installation world blood pressure, particularly on Saudi Arabia and its major Arabic affiliate the Joint Arabic Emirates, to assist give an end to a cruel war that has drawn the area's poorest nationality to the verge of crash. The following obstacle is realization, particularly in Hodeidah, the center of seriousness in the almost 4 persons year dispute that pits the Saudi-backed Yemen by the government versus Houthis verified to Iran. A strong and qualified tracking mode is not fair significant, it is promptly necessary, Mr. Griffiths said the 15-term UN Safety Justice. A tracking arrangement, that would requirement the supporting of a safety justice solution, is creature-produced and anticipated to expand soon. Confidence is yet extremely cheap, and I suspicion how all it will get is one little provocative act and we could see the entire item strike upwards, warns length-time Yemen observer Peter Salisbury, elder analysis at the World Meltdown team. More than rather than whatever, it is necessary continuous focus of Griffiths and his crew fair to hinder a backslide. We'll be observer close for the following 4 persons days, a term of the Yemen by the government deputation said me. When the Houthis don't drag their forces out of Hodeidah by later, the whole transactions will be corpse. The at first stage of the ceasefire treaty commits Houthi forces who monitoring Hodeidah to remove of the seaport, during days. Next phases will see forces of all sides outgoing their official position in and about the adjacent town. It's a main session by the Houthis who include previous discarded ultimatums of the Yemen by the government, and their Saudi and Emirati backers, to letting all of the strategy area on the Red Sea shore that provides a considerable resource of income. Yemen and Emirati forces include been inching striker and are now massive on the suburb of the town. It shows how war blood pressure plant, underlines the UAE Secretary of Country for Overseas Sphere, Dr. Anwar Gargash. He said me how the treaty is not a little move. It is a big breakout. But down there are already grumblings of dissatisfaction. A declaration of the chief of the Houthi deputation, Mohammed Abdul Salam, told his party had taken into account too much lot acquiescence in the talks. But he quoted a human and ethical commitment to carry out the ceasefire in Hodeidah. For the negotiations in village Sweden, phones were tinkling in lot capitals. In the key recent date an a half-up treaty was achieved, channel were flaming among Washington and Arabic capitals in US officials, consisting U.S. Defense Secretariat General James Mattis, calling allies to behind the trial. Installation blood pressure in the U.S. has added policy weight, consisting the 1 week's Sinead solution to end U.S. war supporting to the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen, and the expansion radioactive fallout of the assassination of Saudi reporter Jamal Khashoggi. The Sinead as well gonna solution, in bipartisan supporting, denouncing the murder and keeping Saudi Corona Duke Mohammed bin Salman accountable. Down there's been an accumulating of blood pressure, acknowledged one Arabic formal. Yemen is now edged in a human story, quite rather than a strategy. Is how he put the increasing alarm signal and indignation above the humane price of the confronting. Saudi Arabia and the UAE had been enterprising for a war win in Hodeidah, vision it as a play converter to end the war and restrain the impact of their arch-competing Iran, whom they blame of contraband arms via the seaport. If the key ceasefire holds, more than or less than, it will assist hold millions of human beings live. Couple thirds of Yemen is now trust on several shape of meal aid, consisting 10 millionth hudong tea aware wherever their following food will go of. Largest of Yemen's assistance, as so as its business imports, come via the urgent goal. I can't speak you how lightweight we are, remarked the UN's Inhabitant Company Ordinator, Lisa Grande, who named the respite the start of the end of a tragical meaningless warfare. The human press briefing to the UN Safety Justice that accompanied Mr. Griffiths' declaration driven a absolute precautionary. The largest comprehensive strict meal safety examination always carried out in the nation had affirmed Yemen's reduction in the direction hunger, underlined UN human head Mark Lowcock, who implored this parties to go on to attract severely in Martin's trial, consisting performing the agreements achieved in Sweden. The recent circle of negotiations, the at first in more than rather than 2 year, noted an accomplishment for Mr. Griffiths' thorough public diplomacy. He thoroughly diminished consumer expectations by description, the Swedish staying as consultations, not negotiations. It would be a searching for de-escalation, not a ceasefire. The sudden Hodeidah respite was not the just move striker. Ceasefires were as well coordinated at the ports of Salayf and Ras Issa. Down there was essential advance on the mechanical of a massive exchanging of prisoners, a deep emotion question for so lot Yemen families. And down there was an insight on weakening the siege on the southward western town of Taiz. But advance bring down brief in some areas, consisting discovery the world aeroport in the equity Sana'a, that is by Houthi monitoring. It was a begin, an historical begin. The will be the at first departure of any forces in the story of the dispute. Mr. Griffiths proclaimed in the close right on Thursday, that though driven in UN Secretariat General Antonio Guterres to add to the feeling of urgent Yemen's winding story tool, each move will be hard and hazardous. But the expect now is how several stairs will, at recent, begin driving in the order line.